We got so many great comments and some wonderful questions today. The main question is on barm and storage of yeast. Thanks for joining us today on Questions and Answers with James Townsend and Son. The first question here comes from Android Does. He says, do you have any formal training in cooking? And the answer is no, I certainly do not. I really enjoy doing the research, and I even enjoy experimenting with the food. So, that's my training. I think passion trumps training if you really love it. So this question is from the Simple Soldier Food episode that Josh and I did out in the woods. It was a great episode. Nick Farrow says, would they have used white flour in that time frame or whole wheat? Now, I'm wondering whether his question means people in general or soldiers. People in general had access to very finely sifted flour. They would have had white flour in the time frame, but soldiers more than likely would have had very poor quality flour, or even worse than regular whole wheat, where they actually added back in bran so that it was a really nasty kind of flour. So it would have been very inexpensive flour. And the soldiers, especially American or North American soldiers, they would have even had cornmeal instead of wheat flour, because that would have been sometimes an expensive product depending where they're at. So hopefully I've answered that question. Nick Farrow's got another great question. This is the main question here for this episode. How would you store the barm, and how long would it hold up? And this is from the Wigs baking wigs. They're kind of seed cakes. That was way back in the first or possibly second season when we did the wigs. We made a sort of a substitute barm. And barm it's a big question. That whole yeast in the 18th century, exactly what it was like. But this idea of how would you store barm and how long would it hold up is a really, that question actually gets to the heart of part of the yeast problem. Yeast in the 18th century, almost always it was a liquid yeast that a baker would get from the brewer as a sort of a byproduct. And that the problem is this barm, this yeast did not last long. It was in a liquid form, and it's alive. And it wants to keep growing. If it runs out of food, it dies and it goes bad. It goes putrid. So a liquid barm in this case would not last very long, maybe only a couple of days, especially in warm weather. If it was colder, it might last a week or 2 weeks. If you were very careful with it, you changed the water, you kept it cool. They didn't know what yeast was in the time period. They didn't know that it was alive. So there were a lot of questions about how to use it. There was a lot of mystery around yeast and what was going on with it. How did you store it? Well, there are some directions in the 18th century, right there in the mid-18th century, where you'll find where they talk about drying barm in thin layers, layer upon layer, and then they would revive that yeast later on. That wasn't a very popular technique. And it isn't until very late in the 18th century or in the 19th century where we see kind of that dried yeast cake that we might be a little bit more familiar with showing up on the scene for brewers and bakers, where they would actually be able to have yeast that would last for months and months in storage. Quite a while back, we covered in the bread series at least one episode that talked about storage of yeast, another technique. And I'll put a link down in in the description section so you can go and check that out. And the final little note here is from Chris Brown, and it's from the little video I put out where we were talking about going to Kalamazoo last weekend. He says, I would love to do this, but unfortunately I live in the South. Do you do anything down here or know of any good reenactment places that are here? There are great events that are happening all around the country, but they can be a little difficult to find. Right now, we are working on a tool to help people find events and other historical reenactment sort of things. So stay tuned with us. We're gonna be talking about that more in the next month or two. So if you're looking for events, and I'm sure you are, if you enjoy this channel, stay tuned. I really want to thank everyone who came out to see us, both at the MOMCC conference and especially last weekend at Kalamazoo. We had so many people stop by, shake hands, ask me lots of questions, and it was an amazing time connecting with everyone who was available to come out. And really, if you look at the Facebook page, you'll see some pictures pop up here. We took a lot of pictures with folks that came by. It was a great time meeting everyone. If you came out, if you were able and you were close and you came out, thank you so much for stopping by and saying hi. And hopefully this summer, I'm going to be able to get a chance to get out more to different parts of the country to connect with some different sites and events. So hopefully you'll be able to connect with me further on. Again, stay tuned. I'll try to announce as I'm going to be different places. I want to thank everyone for your amazing questions. Really, the community here is second to none. You guys do an amazing job down in the comment section. I want to thank everyone for your amazingly encouraging comments, and thanks for watching. If you're a new viewer and you haven't subscribed, press the subscribe button up here. That'll take you to a spot where you can subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching.